Being a god is no simple task. It is hard work, sometimes rewarding, often challenging, and always demanding. But I am the god of this universe, and today I will share with you the tale of how I shaped this cosmos and the choices I made that have left their mark on eternity. In the early days, I unleashed a great flood upon the earth. Why? Because the Nephilim, those reckless demigods, had overrun the land with their might and their chaos. They shattered the balance I had so carefully designed, so I acted. I raised the waters, and with a mighty surge, the earth was cleansed of their corruption. It was necessary, and it was just. But that was a long time ago. Now, as I cast my gaze upon the earth once more, I see a new breed of chaos. The snake people, with their slithering forms and dark, twisted intentions. They stir my divine ire. My blood burns at the sight of them. But I am not the same god I was back then. I will not send another flood to wipe them out. I have learned from the past. I have come to realize that destruction is not always the solution. And so this is my story. Listen well.
You are watching the Tales of the Savannah. Subscribe and be part of the tribe. Now let's get back to the story.
To understand who I am, dear viewer, you must first grasp the sheer magnitude of my empire, the universe. Scholars among you, with your limited instruments and calculations, estimate its size to be 93 billion light-years in diameter. A commendable effort truly, but that is merely the observable part. My universe is in reality infinite, stretching beyond the confines of your imagination. And as for its age, you say 13.8 billion years old. Know this, I am far older than the universe I have created, older than time itself. Yet you are not here to ponder the mysteries of dark matter or the unseen forces that govern existence. No, Earthling, you seek knowledge of the one thing that concerns you most, Earth. Ah, Earth, the thorn in my side. I wrote about its creation in a book that you might have heard of. Many have read it after all. It is called the Bible. And I will tell you this, creating Earth has been the most troublesome experience of my existence. It all started in a garden, a simple garden, or so I intended. Perfectly designed, every leaf in its place, every blade of grass a testament to my brilliance. But it seems that perfection, even divine perfection, has its challenges, for it was there, amidst the flowering plants and gentle streams, that things began to unravel. It was in that garden that my greatest creation dared to defy me, setting in motion a series of events that would test the limits of even my patience. Listen closely, for this is not a story you will find in most books. This is my account, and it begins with a single act of rebellion in a garden I once called perfect. And so it begins. But first, I must tell you the story of creation. Before the earth, before the stars, before the universe itself, there was only me. I spoke, and from nothing came everything. In a matter of days, I formed light and darkness, carved the sky from the waters, and pulled the dry land from the deep. I scattered seeds across the barren ground and watched as life began to blossom. I shaped the sun, the moon, and the stars, setting them in their places to mark the seasons and guide the night. Then I filled the seas with creatures of all kinds, and the sky with birds that soared above. I made every animal that roams the land, from the majestic lion to the lowliest insect. And finally, I created humankind in my image, with a mind to think and a heart to feel. I gave them dominion over all living things, a choice to make, a purpose to fulfill. 7 days it took to breathe life into this world, to craft a place of beauty and order. 7 days to set everything in motion. And I rested satisfied, believing that my work was perfect. But even perfection has its challenges. For every act of creation, there is an act of defiance. And what came next would test the very fabric of my design. This is where the real story begins. In the beginning, Earth was meant to be a place of relaxation for me and my fellow gods, a divine retreat, if you will. One thing I did not mention in that beautiful book I wrote, the Bible, is that I created other gods in my own image to govern every principle of Earth. There was a god for water, a god for fire, a god for the seas. Every domain and power you can imagine, I delegated to them. I also created angels, each with authority over every principality and power. It was a flawless creation, perfect until it wasn't. Humans, Adam and Eve, were my finest work, crafted to tend to the garden with diligence. At first, they catered to the gods, ensuring that their time in this paradise was as relaxing as my divine will intended. All was well in my creation. Understand this, I come from a long line of gods. My brothers and sisters, uncles and aunts, they all govern their own universes. The space we occupy is far grander than your mortal minds could ever comprehend. But that is not the point. The point is, in my universe, I decided to do something different, something bold. I wanted to introduce a concept I called free will, a notion where my creations could think for themselves, express their own feelings, and choose whom they would worship. My fellow gods warned me against it. A god must not give people or objects choice, they said, for it will surely work against you. But I believed I knew better. I built this universe on the foundation of free will, and oh, how I have come to regret that decision. It all began with a rebellion among my angels. Morning Star, you might know him as Satan, rose up against me. A third of my angels bowed before him. They had grievances, of course. With free will comes complications. People, even angels, often choose power over obedience, and that is a consequence I chose long ago. Now I must bear it. As is often the case with good things, they eventually come to an end. Morning Star, ever cunning, found a way to disrupt my garden. He took the form of a serpent and whispered his poison into the ear of Eve. With a single act, he sowed the seed of discontent. This, as they say, was the beginning of the end. I had no choice but to cast Adam and Eve out of the garden. Believe me, I do not relish punishing my creations, but this was one of the harshest decisions I had made since I brought Earth into being. And soon enough, brother turned against brother, and the very ground echoed with the cries of spilled blood. As for Morning Star, perhaps I was too merciful. Maybe I sought a challenge, for being a god can sometimes be lonely and isolating. Sometimes even a god needs a bit of drama. I allowed him to roam, and soon enough his defiance spread to earth. The fallen angels, now banished, found the daughters of men to be beautiful. They took them as wives and bore children, the Nephilim. These giants, these half-divine beings, became a plague upon my creation, destroying everything in their path. I waited, hoping they would learn their lesson. But the Nephilim were fierce and brutal, far beyond my expectations. They left a trail of destruction that could not be ignored, and so I wrote my second commandment to the heavenly host. No gods shall live among men. But by then, the Nephilim situation had escalated beyond control. I was forced to act. To save the earth, I unleashed a great flood. I instructed Noah to build an ark and take 2 of every animal to ride out the chaos. The giants were destroyed, but the earth paid a great price. For 40 days and 40 nights, the waters covered the land. The cries of the fallen reached my ears, asking what wrong they had done. It was a moment of reflection for me as a god. I considered whether I should revoke free will, strip away the choice I had bestowed upon my creation, but in the end, I decided against it. Free will, despite its complications, is a part of my grand design. Now let us turn our attention to a newer problem: the snake people. Another troublesome creation that has emerged within my universe. They remind me of the Nephilim, and the destruction I had to bring upon them. But I am not the same God I was at the beginning. I have learned that doing the same thing repeatedly is madness, and I am not mad. I am God. Since I'm already answering your questions, let me address another one I hear often. Why does God allow the morning star to do as he pleases? I have hinted at the answer before. You see, being a god can be lonely. I have no friends, except for my family, but they have their own universes to manage. There must be excitement, tension, drama. It makes existence worth the while. As for the snake people, do not think I hate them. They bring the entertainment I desire. The hunters chasing them, tracking their every move, create a spectacle that keeps things lively. I check in from time to time, watching their battles from above, wondering who will emerge victorious. This is why I do not simply snap my fingers and erase them from existence. I am bound by laws that even I cannot break. Promises I have made to myself, rules I must honor. It is a system I created, and I live by it. I enjoy the conflicts as much as you do, dear viewer. In this, you and I are not so different. We both savor the show. The snake goddess will have her people just as I have allowed Morningstar to be who he is. It keeps things interesting, does it not? The Tales of the Savannah ask me to share my side of the story as we dive deeper into the next chapter of the saga between the snake people and the hunters. I am a storyteller myself. I love telling stories. I hope you learned something from it. Before I forget, what does the Tales of the Savannah say at the end of each video? Here it is. And as always...
Thank you for watching our story, and we hope you enjoyed it. What lessons did you draw from this story? Share your thoughts with us in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe and be part of the tribe. Thank you for watching The Tales of the Savannah. We will see you next time in the Savannah.